friends, this video on resources and development part 5 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Soil resources. Now, soil is again a very important thing that we all need for our survival. Why? Because soil supports plant growth and all other life forms are directly or indirectly dependent on plants. Right? So, it's as simple as that. So, soil is something which is very, very important. Now, the next question that comes to our mind is when we think of soil, there are many different types of soil. So, here we have created this table where we have the different types of soil and we will talk about their composition, what are they made up of, whether they are fertile or not, what kind of plants grow in those types of soil. So, the first type of soil that we will discuss is the alluvial soil. So first thing that you should know is why is it called alluvial? Because alluvium is a word which means deposited by flowing water, and this type of soil is deposited by flowing water. That is why it is called alluvial soil. And these are found in the eastern coastal plains and northern plains. So if you look at this map of India, you actually see the alluvial soil here. So this is where the alluvial soil is found, and this is the northern plain, right? This is the north side of the map. So this is the plain region which is northern plain. And it is also found in the coastal plains, near the coastal areas. So here you have sea. So the area next to the sea is the coastal area, right? So this is coastal area. This is also the part of northern plain. This is coastal area, right? So in all these coastal areas, again, you have the alluvial soil. What is it made up of? It is made up of sand, silt and clay. So what are these three things? So these are three different materials of which soil is made up of, and based on the particle size you can say that clay is extremely small in size, silt is slightly bigger than clay, and sand has bigger particles than silt. Right? And they are also, these alluvial soils are very rich in potash, phosphoric acid and lime. So you should know this composition. There are two types of alluvial soil. One is old alluvial, which is also known as Bangar, and the other is new alluvial, which is also known as Khadan. So Bangar and Khadar. Talk about its fertility, it is very fertile, it is extremely fertile, and that is why in these northern plains and the coastal areas you have fertile soils. So you have a huge variety of plants which grow there, right? So some of the plants which are supported by alluvial soil are sugarcane, paddy, wheat, cereals and pulses. So you see a good variety of plants that are supported by the alluvial soil. So you see, everything is logical and connected. So just now I said that alluvial soil is deposited by flowing water, right? Now since it is deposited by flowing water, it carries with itself sand, silt and clay. Now since it has such good composition, therefore it is very fertile, and since it is fertile, therefore it supports a wide variety of plants like sugarcane, paddy, wheat, cereals and pulses. Now talking about its fertility, since it is very fertile, therefore the areas where we have alluvial soil, they are very densely populated. Why? Because huge population need more crops need fertile soil, and alluvial soil is fertile, right? However, in certain dry areas, the areas where you do not get enough rainfall, there the soil needs good irrigation and also some use of fertilizers for good growth of crops. So that was about alluvial soil. Now let's move on to the next type of soil, which is black soil, or this is also known as regur soils. In fact, it is also known as cotton soil. Now this is called black soil because of its color, which is black. Where do we find it? It is found in the northwest Deccan Plateau. Where is Deccan Plateau? Somewhere in the central region, right? So if you see black soil, this is the region where you see black soil. So not the entire Deccan Plateau, because entire Deccan Plateau is this area as well, but only towards the northwest part of the Deccan Plateau you have black soil. Now if somebody asks you which are the states where you get black soil, so that is where this map is going to help you. because you all should have an idea that which are the states which are located in which portion of the map. If you do not remember that, you can always refer your geography lesson of class 9, where we talk about the physical location in the map of India, right? So when you know that this is the region where you get black soil, you can identify which are the states located in this region, right? So composition wise, it has clay, and it also has calcium carbonate, magnesium, potash, and lime. Fertility wise, it is fertile, but during hot and dry season. Why? Because during dry season it develops cracks, and the cracks in this type of soil helps in soil aeration. That is, air is able to enter inside the soil. So that's how it is helpful in dry season. But during the rainy season, this type of soil is very, very sticky because it has very high moisture retention. So this black soil has good moisture retention. That means it is able to hold water for a very long period of time. And if it is rainy season, it is like water all the time. So too much of water in the soil makes it very sticky, and it is ideal for growing cotton. That is why it is called cotton soil. Now, in case of black soil, when we talk about its composition, we see that it is very poor in phosphorus content. It has potash, but it has very poor phosphorus content. Moving on to the next, which is red and yellow soils. Now, obviously, they are called red and yellow because of their color. So, they are normally reddish in color. However, in hydrated form, they are yellow in color. That is why they are called red and yellow soils. Where do we find them? Eastern and southern parts of Deccan Plateau. So, you see, this is red and yellow soil. So basically in the entire Deccan Plateau, you just get two types of soils. One is black soil, the other is red and yellow soil. Now this red color of this soil is because of the presence of iron particles. So when you talk about its composition, it is acidic in nature. It has iron, aluminium, and lime. The speciality of this soil is that it has low water holding capacity. That means it cannot retain moisture for longer time. So therefore, this type of soil is not very good in dry areas, because in dry areas there will not be much rainfall, and this soil anyways cannot hold water for a long time, right? So therefore, this type of soil is not fertile on higher dry lands. However, if they are very fine grained in certain areas, then they are fertile. So basically this type of soil in certain areas, in the dry areas, they are not fertile, but in comparatively wet areas, they are fertile. Now in those areas where they are not very fertile, so in those areas, they support the growth of millets. So millets like bajra, jawar, these are all examples of millets, and these millets, they do not need very fertile soil for their growth. So wherever you see less fertile soil, there you can still grow millets. However, if these red and yellow soils are present in some wet areas where they have better fertility, there they are also used to grow wheat, cotton, potato. Now, even though they are not very fertile, but we can always mix manure to make it more fertile, right? So, when we talk about fertility, alluvial soil is the most fertile soil. But that doesn't mean that in other types of soil we cannot, grow crops. By mixing fertilizers and manures, we can improve their fertility and we can grow crops. Let's move on to the fourth type of soil, which is laterite. Why is it called laterite? Because it is derived from the word later, which means brick. And where do we find these kind of soils? These are found in the southern states, some parts of West Bengal and northeast regions. So if you look at the map, there are very few regions where you see this. Some parts of South India, some parts of West Bengal here, right? So just few regions where you actually get this type of laterite soils. Now, how do we get laterite soils? So laterite soils are basically obtained from black soil only. So at very high temperature and heavy rainfall, the black soil gets transformed into laterite soil. Now here you might ask a question that black soil is present in the Deccan Plateau. right? But now what happens is, if by any chance some black soil is present in any of these areas which receive heavy rainfall and they have very high temperature, in that case they transform into laterite soil. So basically these soils are found in black soil regions with very heavy rainfall. That is why you see they are not found in abundance, like very little regions where you actually get laterite soils. In fact, in India, these soils are not at all fertile. So they are very less fertile in India. And because of low fertility, these soils are often not at all used for agriculture in India. It is mostly used as building materials in India, like how we use brick as a building material. So in a similar way, laterite soil is also used as a building material. However, sometimes by mixing fertilizers, these soils are made capable of being, growing plants such that it becomes cultivable. So it supports plants like tea, coffee, cashew nuts. So that is why you would have seen that in certain southern states, you actually have this tea, coffee growing a lot. That is because these type of soils are found in the southern parts of India. If you talk about its composition again, it is poor in nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and urea. And these are some of the things which make the soil very fertile, but it is poor in most of those things. Next is arid soils. So arid means dry. So obviously these soils are found in the dry regions like Rajasthan, where you have deserts. So they are sandy. So that you can very easily relate to Rajasthan sand. So sandy, salt rich, very high salt content. Sometimes from these soils we actually extract salt. Yes, they are very less fertile, and that is why we grow millets here and little bit of maize, barley. But millets, always remember that millets are grown in soils which are less fertile, because millets do not need very high fertility of the soil. Then you have forest soils which are found in forests and mountainous areas. Like here you can see the forest and mountains, like top north Himalayas. There you have the forest soils. Their fertility varies with location. So the fertility is not fixed in this case. Some areas the forest soils are more fertile. At certain other areas they are less fertile. They are used to grow spices, tea, coffee, and tropical fruits. So now, why did I draw this chart? So this chart is for you to know all the different types of soil and where are they found. Now please remember that whenever we are learning geography, it is very important that you relate everything with the map, because when you relate it with the map, it kind of gets registered in your brain. You do not need to memorize anything. Just look at this map and try to understand which soil is present where. So if you are able to do that, trust me, you will be able to remember which soil is found in which location. And as you can see, if you remember, if you actually understand how exactly each of these soils are named, you actually get to know a lot of features about those soils. Right? So wherever you come across very good fertility soil, that means you grow all the crops like wheat, sugarcane, paddy, etc. If it is a very less fertile soil, you grow things like millets. If it is a soil again which is less fertile in the hilly areas, then you grow things like tea, coffee, cashew nut, etc. So in this fashion, you can very logically find out what type of soil is used for growing what kind of plants. Let's move further and let's talk about a serious problem, which is soil erosion. Washing away of the soil cover by wind, water, or farming activities is called soil erosion. Now what happens if you do not plant trees? Then the soil is left open. During heavy rainfall, the top layer of the soil gets washed away with water. Sometimes due to heavy wind, the top layer of the soil gets washed away. Now generally the most fertile part of the soil, like humus, is present in the top layer of the soil. Now when that layer gets carried away with wind or water, what happens? The quality of the soil deteriorates. And that is when we also say that the land degrades, because the quality of the land again deteriorates. Correct? So this is called soil erosion. Now if it happens by wind, we call it wind erosion. If it happens due to heavy rainfall, we call it water erosion. And sometimes soil erosion also happen due to farming activities, like incorrect methods of farming also results in soil erosion. So now, this is the problem statement. So what can we do to solve this problem? Now there are a couple of soil conservation techniques, and the first technique is shelter belts. What are shelter belts? So a row of trees are planted along the edge of the field. Let's say that this is the field, this is the boundary of the field, and as you can see that on the boundary, similar trees have been planted, and these trees, they act as the boundary of this entire field, and as a result the wind speed is reduced. So these shelter belts, they help to reduce wind speed, and as a result they prevent wind erosion. So shelter belts are protection against wind erosion. The next technique is strip cropping. What is that? The entire field is divided into strips. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are strips. And strips of grass are left to grow between the crops. So if you see, if this is the crop, this is the row of crop, this is a strip of grass. Again you have the crop, again you have a strip of grass. Again you have the crop, again you have a strip of grass. So why do we have this pattern? Because this pattern breaks the force of the wind. So again, it helps to prevent wind erosion. So basically shelter belts and strip cropping, these are two techniques which help to prevent wind erosion. Now what about water erosion? So for that we have a different technique. Let's talk about terrace cultivation. Now, mostly in the mountainous areas, like let's say you have a mountain. So in that case, what happens during heavy rains? So since it has a slope, mountains will always have slope, and during heavy rains, what will happen? Along with the rain water, the soil will get carried away very easily along the slope. So in order to avoid that, what do? Steps are built on the mountain slopes, like how it is shown in this picture. So you have built steps, and there is an outlet at every step through which water goes to the next step. Like it is not that the water will flow just like this. So water from one step to the other step will flow through an outlet which is present there. And this technique helps to prevent water erosion. So this is a very useful technique which helps in crop cultivation in hilly and mountainous areas. However, there are a couple of disadvantages also attached with terrace cultivation. The first disadvantage is that the construction and maintenance of the terraces is a big task. I mean, it's not very easy to construct these terraces. So you need a lot of people putting in all the effort to construct them and then to maintain them. Secondly, if there is heavy rainfall, like heavy means excess rainfall, may lead to rainwater saturation, because if there is excess of rainfall, even though you have the steps, that really do not help. Moreover, it gives rise to mudslides. So if maintenance is very important, in this case just constructing the terraces will not help. It is also important to maintain the terraces, otherwise the terraces will be full of mud, and these mudslides, if not managed properly, will again have a negative impact rather. So terrace cultivation is a good technique to prevent water erosion, but it involves a lot of effort, lot of cost for its construction and maintenance, most importantly. And then we have one more technique which is called contour plowing. Now a lot of people confuse contour plowing with terrace cultivation. So first let's understand what is contour plowing. Here what we do is, here also the cultivation is done along the contours, that is along the boundary lines. So elevation boundary lines are drawn, like how you see here, slightly elevated. So this is like slightly more height, and then you draw the boundary lines like this, and then soil is plowed along the boundary lines. Now what does this do? This reduces the velocity of the runoff water, because when you have a slope, what will happen? Water will flow with a very fast speed. But instead of a direct slope, now you have small boundaries like this, small elevated boundaries like this. So as a result, now the velocity of the run of water will reduce, and therefore this will again prevent water erosion. Now, here arises an interesting question. How is contour ploughing different from terrace cultivation? Now, in contour ploughing, the original shape of the slope is not altered. So, this is also practiced in the valleys. Now, whatever is the shape of the valley, that is not altered. We just create this small elevation kind of, boundary lines along that valley. But the overall shape of the valley is not altered. Whereas in terrace cultivation, the original shape of the slope is altered to form flat areas. Like in terrace cultivation, we form steps like this. So basically the original shape of the valley is altered. But in this case, we do not do any such construction. We just create boundary lines. We maintain the shape of the slope. We just create boundary lines like this, so that due to the creation of these boundary lines, the overall velocity of the run of water is reduced, and as a result, water erosion is prevented. So these are some of the techniques which helps to prevent wind and water erosion respectively. Let us do a quick recap on this lesson on resources and development. So all that we have learned here is, what is a resource? Everything in our environment that can be used for our benefit, such that it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. Resources can be classified on four bases. On the basis of origin, they are classified as abiotic resources. On the basis of exhaustibility, they are classified as renewable and non-renewable resources. On the basis of ownership, they are classified as individual, community, national, and international. And on the basis of development status, they are classified as potential, developed, stock, and reserves. So we have discussed about all of these in detail in the lesson. Now, when we talk about resources, it becomes very important to talk about sustainable development. That means development without causing damage to the environment. And in order to ensure a sustainable development, it is important that resource planning is done along with resource conservation. Now, what exactly do we do in resource planning? Now, resource planning is important because if resource is not used properly, it may lead to resource depletion, rich and poor division, global warming, ozone layer depletion, and pollution. So that is why resource planning is important, and in order to plan a resource, the 4-step resource planning strategy is very important. Next, we talk about the land resources. Before that, we must know that in India, 30% of the land is mountains, 27% plateaus, and remaining 43% plains. And how do we utilize the lands? Either in the form of forests, or in the form of agricultural land, or in the form of non-agricultural land, under which we have barren land, that is wasteland, construction for buildings, roads, industries, hospitals, grazing land for animals, cultivable wasteland, that means a land which is capable of being cultivated but it has been left uncultivated for more than 5 years. And then we have fallow land, that is a land which is ploughed but is left uncultivated because we do not want extra production of crops. However, even though land is so important to us, it has been found that the quality of the land is degrading. And what are the causes? Due to overgrazing, over-irrigation, industrialization, and mining. Now, what are the solutions to solve the problem of land degradation? Stop overgrazing, plant more trees, manage the wastelands, proper disposal of industrial waste, and control mining activities. Now, when we talk about land resources, it is also important that we understand what is net sown area and how is it different from gross cropped area. It is interesting to know that certain states like Punjab and Haryana, they have more than 80% of net sown area, whereas some of the northeast states like Mizoram have even less than 10% net sown area. And then we talk about soil as a resource, where we discuss about the various types of soil, like alluvial soil, which is the most fertile soil found in the northern plains and coastal plains; black soil, which is very good for growing cotton and therefore also called cotton soil; red and yellow soils; laterite soils, which are formed from black soils under high temperature and heavy rainfall; arid soils, which are found in dry areas like Rajasthan; and forest soils, which are found in the forests areas and mountain areas. Talking about soil, it becomes important to know what is soil erosion, that is washing away of soil cover by wind, water and farming activities, and how can we control it? By various techniques like contour plowing, that is plowing along the elevated contour lines; strip cropping, that is leaving strip of grass between crops so that the wind speed can be reduced; shelter belts, that is growing a row of trees on the boundary of a field to reduce the speed of the wind; terrace farming, that is converting the mountain slopes into terraces so that we can prevent water erosion; stop overgrazing so that the soil quality is maintained; plant more trees; construct dams. So these are some of the ways in which soil erosion can be prevented. So this was a quick recap of this lesson on resources and development. However, this is just for quick recap. If you want to understand the lesson in more detail, then please watch the previous videos so that you get a better understanding. So I hope that you found this lesson on resources and development useful. If you liked the lesson, do not forget to share it with your friends so that they can also learn from these videos. So see you all very soon with a new lesson with a new topic. Thank you. Please visit examfear.com for free quality education. You can learn with a simple 4-step learning process wherein you can watch video lessons, you can ask your questions, you can refer notes, and you can take a free online test. We have content for class 6 to 12 on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology along with practical videos. So please subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thank you.